We're live.
Awesome. Was that Bob that just came in?
It was.
Excellent. Hi, Bob. Okay, my name is Tracy Metzger, and as chair of the IDA, I'd like to call to order our regular meeting. At this time, we'd like to take a look at the minutes, and they were previously distributed. So unless there are any questions or changes, I'd like a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
That's Darius, a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So today we'll just go along and follow the agenda. So we'll go with the chief financial report, please, Mark.
Thanks, Tracy. So in the month of July, we did receive one application fee from home leasing. The other revenue was interest income. The expenses that are listed there are approved by in the 2020 budget, or were approved by the board in 2020 this year. We are projecting a couple projects to perhaps close either in August or later on in the year, so they are listed on the projection. So with that, we are projecting a little over $3 million in ending cash for the IDA.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we will move forward with new business. The first item would be 39 Columbia Street. We have a resolution consenting to mortgage and historic tax credit requirements. Do we need any background on this?
Tracy, the only thing I'd point out is that associated with this request, no additional benefits are being requested, strictly administrative in nature.
Thank you. So with that, we have a resolution authorizing the execution consent by City of Albany Industrial Development Agency of a certain mortgage and related documents in connection with the 39 Columbia Street Associates LLC project. Do I have a motion? That would be Darius. A second, please.
I'll second. Dominic.
Dominic, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, moving forward, I have to keep scrolling here. The next item would be Columbia 50 NS LLC, 50 New Scotland Avenue. We have a resolution authorizing assignment and assumption. Andy, any comments?
Yes, similar to a request that we saw at the previous board meeting. This involves a change in the membership interest of the LLC of the project. The actual owners remain the same. Again, no additional benefits are being requested as part of this. And of note, the project applicant's counsel, Deb Lamback, is also with us today if anyone has any more in-depth questions.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for being here, Deb. Okay, we have a resolution consenting to and authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents with respect to the assignment and assumption of the Columbia 50 NS LLC project. Do I have a motion?
I'll
So
move.
moved.
We're going to go with Susan this time. A second. Darius, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay. The next item is Laughlin Dawn LLC, Sandwich Way. Resolution authorizing a pilot deviation letter and public hearing to amend phase 1 pilot. Andy? Thank
you, Tracy. Just as a refresher, this project closed with the agency in April of 2019. It was a 4-phase pilot. The request at hand involves a 1-year extension of phase 1 only, sliding from the pilot commencing in 2021 to 2022. As you saw in the request letter submitted by the project beneficiary, the construction delays and the subsequent slow startup of construction due to the COVID-19 crisis is the reasoning for this and the reasoning for the construction delays. Shifting the pilot by 1 calendar year does result in an increased overall over the course of the phase 1 pilot, an increased benefit of about $127,000 to the project applicant. Therefore, following in line with our policy manual, we are requesting the board go forward with a public hearing resolution in order for a public hearing to be held next month because the additional benefits being sought exceed $100,000. And if Joe Scott or Deb have anything to add to that, I'll let them jump in.
Chair, just quickly, it's out of an abundance of caution that we're holding the public hearing. Our notification letter to the affected taxing jurisdictions did provide for some level of flexibility with respect to the start date of the pilot agreement. However, our actual agreement has a fixed date based on the initial discussions with the project applicant. And again, as Andy correctly noted, pushing it back 1 year with the same schedule. There's no change in the schedule, no change in the project dimensions. There's a slight increase in the amount of the overall benefits. And we thought it prudent to move forward with a public hearing before doing the amendment, before considering the amendment.
Thank you, Joe. This is where we're starting to see the impact of the pandemic. Any comments or questions from the board? With that, I'll read the resolution. The resolution authorizing the chief executive officer to send a letter to the chief executive officers of the affected taxing entities, informing them of a proposed deviation from the agency's uniform tax exemption policy, and B, conduct a public hearing in connection therewith. Do I have a motion? Darius, a second. Susan, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Resolution passes. Is that the only resolution relative to this project? Right now?
Yes.
Okay, next we have, we're gonna have a Liberty Park acquisition update. I think Susan and staff will go into the waiting room. It's just a quick update.
We'll just redisclose our connection with Capitalized Albany Corporation, and that's for our recusal.
Thank you.
So someone.
Moving everyone needed to go into the waiting room,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just let us know when you're finished, May, and then we'll start up. Thank you.
At this time, everyone is in the waiting room.
Not me. You need
Just
Sarah
me.
Reginelli in there as well.
All right, Sarah's in the waiting room now as well.
Thank you, May.
Thank you. So as you may recall, the owners of the parcels in question with respect to the condemnation proceeding requested a meeting with the IDA. And Darius and I did meet with representatives of the ownership. I think we had a healthy discussion. We reviewed the condemnation proceedings and basically encouraged them to negotiate directly with CAC, since we do not have the power to negotiate. CAC is the one with the funds. We are hopeful that will occur and avoid the proceedings. But I guess time will tell on that end. Also, Joe Scott, you wanted to give them an update on the appraisal?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We had some issues with the selected appraiser, Hafner Valuation. Mr. Smith has changed firms, and he went to a firm with a New York City office. We got a fairly involved appraisal contract from his new firm. There were several provisions that candidly weren't acceptable. We tried to move back and forth with them to get those provisions deleted. We were unsuccessful. We reached out to Armstrong Appraisals, one of the other firms that submitted proposals. They had held their proposal during the length of time. We were able to reach agreement with them on a contract. Contract's been signed, and they are moving forward with the preparation of the report. They estimated 5 to 7 weeks. So I would expect in about a month from now, we'll have a report. So all things are proceeding with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments or questions at this point? Okay, great. Let's let everybody back in from the waiting room and we'll proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, May. If you can move on that, that would be terrific.
Looks like everyone's making their way back in.
Hello, we've rejoined.
Everybody's here? Okay, great. We're going to move into other business at this point. We have agency update, the grant program update.
Great, thank you, Tracy. We actually have quite a few just general update items under agency update before we get into all of the good news under the grant program update. I think I'd like to start off with notifying the board that the Regional Economic Development Council met this morning. They are charged with putting together a COVID recovery plan and have a pretty detailed survey going out to pretty far and wide to understand the impacts of COVID and the recovery needs of industry and business in our region. I'll be sending that survey around to the group. Please take some time to look at it. If you do know of any groups or individuals, businesses or otherwise who would be beneficial to have fill out the survey, please do feel free to distribute that as well. So that's item number one. I want to recap that the governance committee did review a recommendation from the city's sustainability advisory committee. We will be taking that back to governance as well after staff has taken a crack at devising a definition of a sustainability community metric, and we'll review that as a board. Third, I was able to participate on, I think it was Monday of this week, a meeting with the Council of Trades across the region, looking at a pre-apprenticeship program for workforce development within the city of Albany, getting into the construction trades. It was a very productive conversation with representatives from many of the building trades, as well as the city and county workforce development groups and community members on how to increase participation, particularly with women and minority contractors in the trades for that. And so I'll keep the board apprised of that. There might be an opportunity for the Industrial Development Agency to be a part of that important work of increasing diversity and local participation in the trades, enabling the trades to become even stronger than they are today in our projects moving forward. So I'll keep you abreast of that. Hopefully there's a way for us to participate, certainly by helping with the pipeline of projects and activity, but also potentially financially in that endeavor. By way of sort of general update, I did want to address, and in talking with the team here and with the chair, some of the uncertainty expressed during the Finance Committee meeting last week regarding the overall development environment, not only here in the city of Albany, but globally related to COVID-19. That is something that is weighing heavily on us and that we're keeping abreast of. I wanted to make a couple of points related to our analysis process and how we really are able to evaluate projects in these uncertain times. I'd start by acknowledging and reminding the group that we have talked about really wanting to do an update to our procedures across the board anyway. We do have market studies, fiscal impact analyses, and the performance evaluation assistance framework that are a few years old at this point and have been performing incredibly well up until now, but we wanted to update those anyway. And so we were coming into 2020 knowing that we'd like to refresh those and take a new look to ensure that we are keeping up with the times. The times are changing more dramatically and rapidly than any of us could have predicted, obviously, for 2020. And so that is something we know we're going to need to do. There are other uncertain matters out there as well. The city has changed its definition of inclusionary housing, for instance, under the zoning code, and that has implications on projects. We did have prevailing wage legislation that was passed. And while there is still yet to be a named review board to determine what the final impacts of that legislation will be, we know that that is going to have significant changes across the board for our development community. And we're going to need to look at those as well. So it's not just COVID, there are a lot of things on the horizon that we do want to take into account. What I will say is we have a pretty incredible team assembled to be able to do that both internally and externally. You've got your executive team that has more than a decade each of experience in not just Albany development economics, but also New York State development economics and real estate development projects. We are, again, a professional team of economic developers that are able to keep abreast of industry trends, both locally and nationally. During this, we have been involved in as many training sessions as possible, as many, again, regional and national dialogues related to economic development, real estate development, and industry trends. Everything from think tanks like Brookings to trade specific organizations, and also talking with our local development community about what they're seeing in the marketplace. What we're seeing locally at this point is that particularly our multifamily projects are holding strong. Vacancy rates are very low as people are choosing not to throw any additional uncertainty into their lives in terms of moving. At this point, rents are holding steady, but there is a lot of uncertainty about the future moving forward. So we've talked with as many of those local developers as possible, both projects that we've seen in the past, as well as projects that are under construction now, to really understand what they're dealing with. What we do see across the board is that there's tremendous uncertainty in real estate development. Again, as we've talked many times previously, real estate development is very much about risk and risk mitigation, risk analysis. Uncertainty ups the risk factor. And so the challenge that we have as a group and what we've tackled and what the board has really instilled in staff is an understanding that what the industrial development needs to do is balance the needs of moving development projects forward and providing investment for the community with the immediate needs of the taxing jurisdictions. And in order to do that, we've taken an approach with our assistance levels that really take a deep dive analysis into the financials to ensure that we are mitigating hurdles to development and sort of stopping short of providing more than what's necessary for projects to move forward. That's something that's been instilled in us. It's the sort of foundation of what we do across the board on each of our projects. It's the foundation of the project evaluation and assistance framework, and it will continue to be so. What we will commit to doing, I think obviously, but also saying it out loud, is that for the duration, for the remainder of the year, we're going to ensure that we are stepping up that individualized analysis for every single project that comes through. And that's both at the staff level as well as using our contingent of really capable, really experienced industry experts when we need them as a third party analyst. We're going to do that. We know that this uncertainty is going to continue at least through this calendar year, and know that in 2021, we will absolutely be coming back to that market analysis, the fiscal impact analysis, and the review of the project evaluation and assistance framework. As we start to see the impacts of the pandemic, in addition to how some of these other definitions and uncertainties shake out, we will be able to really take a look at that framework and ensure, as the board has charged us with the idea that we are providing a stable level of assistance that's predictable and necessary for good projects to be able to move forward and invest in our community, growing us out of uncertainty and out of the financial challenges that we are today. So I did want to just take a couple of minutes to address that. directly. We should be having this dialogue on an ongoing basis, particularly through the end of the year. And I appreciate that that the board is looking at this so thoughtfully. It's certainly something that that the staff is aware of and very much involved in trying to crack the code and figure out on the fly.
Thank you, Sarah. I just wanted to also say, Sarah and I have talked about this, you know, at length, and the uncertainty, you know, obviously is still there, and we expect it will be around for some time. I mean, you know, personally as board chair, I'd like to see that we are able to, you know, maintain on par the incentives we need to provide for developers to develop here in the city of Albany. But we need some more information, and maybe with the REDC's survey that they're going to be taking, and I've taken some other ones too. You know, as a commercial broker, everyone is trying to secure as much information and feedback as possible to hopefully better predict the future. So I think the time frame of looking to say, you know, maybe the first quarter of 2021 to update our market analysis and other information that's important to us to evaluate the projects, you know, it makes some sense at this point. So thank you.
Sarah, this is Dominic.
Sure.
One thing that came up, I forgot the Broadway project. Development mentioned that, and I think he said 2022 prevailing wages go into effect. Was that legislation passed for the? I'm just trying to remember, because he said something about the project isn't started by X amount of time and then prevailing wages go into effect. You couldn't do the project. I know the state was talking about that for anything they got state, you know, they got tax breaks or state money. So is that in effect, or does Joe know?
Joe, do you want to jump in?
Yes, it's mid-year next year, Dominic.
It's mid-year next year. Okay, all right.
So a project
And
has
that's
to be started.
statewide. So yeah,
Yes,
so that's something else we're gonna have to consider then. I guess. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So projects.
When
ahead.
when does
I'm
prevailing?
breaking.
I'm going to check my memo. It's mid-year next year. There are limitations. It's only for projects with a project cost of 5 million or above and a certain level of financial assistance. So it won't affect every project, but many of the projects that we do, the prevailing wage requirement will apply.
Sure.
Okay, so that means that's something else we're gonna have to consider then.
Exactly.
You know, down the road, and when we do this update, that's gonna have to be included then. Okay.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Dominic.
Okay, if there's nothing further on that, I can jump into grants and give a little bit of an update there. I know, you know, we've had you for a little while this morning already, but this is good news. And so I do want to spend just a little bit of time here on two programs that you'd be aware of. First, you know, less germane to the Industrial Development Agency, but certainly of consideration to the CRC. And without that board meeting today, I'd give a quick update on the emergency grants that were provided earlier in the summer. As of the closeout of that program, we were able to assist more than 30 businesses that were affected in the city of Albany. We were just under 30. We were able to provide direct financial assistance to. The Downtown Business Improvement District and Central Business Improvement District had complementary programs that we were able to provide assistance through them to an additional handful of businesses as well, which brings us to more than 30. We did provide more than $130,000 of direct financial assistance to those groups, and we're working through that with them now. So that was a tremendously successful program that the Capital Resource Corporation was able to support flexibly through existing programming dollars that were there. And then our newest endeavor, which is a colossal undertaking for us as a group and brand new for industrial development agencies across the state, is our small business adaptation program that was launched on Monday of last week. That program provides the opportunity, as you all know, having seen the guidelines, to leverage the approval by the state legislature of PPE grants through industrial development agencies. You were able to make that allocation a few months back. We were able to blend that with community development block grant coronavirus emergency funding that had come through the city of Albany to widen the eligible activities for our local businesses. So be able to provide PPE assistance through CADA and then other adaptation activities, things like retraining, restocking, reimagining how and what your business model looks like, as well as reorganizing physical space through that CDBG fund. We launched that Monday of last week. Within the first 24 hours of launching that program, we had dozens and dozens and dozens of pre-applications. We have been up to more than 130, I believe at this point, pre-applications for that program. We launched the full application yesterday and actually on the 18th. In the first 24 hours, we had roughly 20 completed applications already for that assistance. I think what's interesting to note is that to date, we have received no applications that are just for PPE. So again, thank you for allowing us to be flexible by adding that CDBG funding into the program so that we could have that split look. As we sort of have been polling our local businesses, we knew that the needs were much greater and well beyond PPE for things that other sources are not funding. So by being able to add that flexibility in, we're going to be able to assist more businesses and assist them more deeply, hoping to keep them afloat and keep people employed. Orders of magnitude, I think, is something interesting to note. Capitalize Albany, typically when we are working through our capital improvement programs, whether it's through CRC funding, CDBG funding, or individual funding, we typically do 10, 12, 15 grants at a time through those programs. We are looking at, significantly higher, exponentially higher levels than that. And so it's a testament to the team that I am really fortunate to be a part of, that we're able to get those very complicated program guidelines out, very complicated applications out. We are on an online only format now, which is great, and providing a lot of efficiency on the applicant side as well as on the internal side. So I did just want to take a minute to give kudos to that team. Ashley Mole is leading the charge there. Chris Medby is the project manager on that. And we have both Virginia Rollins and Nora Colhane jumping in and dealing with those businesses individually, providing that individualized assistance. So excellent work from the team across the board, and it's paying off because the response has been overwhelmingly positive for the business community. I'll keep you apprised of how that moves forward. Obviously, anyone that applies for PPE, the reopening activities through the program, will be posted on the Industrial Development Agency's website. Will be distributed. All of those applications to the Finance Committee and the board. Will be holding not a public hearing, but an opportunity for public comment on the applications that would put forward. And all of those decisions will be made by the board of the Industrial Development Agency on those reopening activities, that portion of the grant. So we'll be bringing those back to you in short order. The applications are due on September 18th, which means that we will be bringing these back to the October meetings, finance and board for that. If we have some that are our priority applicants, disadvantaged business enterprises, those are MWBEs and those owned by veterans that are in our neighborhood strategy areas. If we have some that are knocking it out of the park, we can talk about maybe bringing them back earlier if they're complete and ready for analysis previously, but look out for those at the October meetings.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear the response has been significant, and kudos to staff working so hard to create the programs based on research that we thought would meet the needs of many businesses. And thanks for your hard work. I know you've had to move and pivot, as they say, very quickly, and much appreciated. I'm anxious to see the grants, a list of the businesses that have already secured grants through that first program, Sarah. Are they posted
can bring that.
somewhere?
They aren't posted somewhere. We are sensitive to the fact that their businesses were damaged. And so there's some sensitivity around sort of listing who they were. We can provide a list of those around through sort of it. We'll send it to the CRC. It's all of you folks, but we'll send it to the CRC board via email, the roundup of who those were provided to. And at our next CRC Finance Committee and board meeting, we'll go through those in detail.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I'd just like to add a thank you to both Tracy and Sarah for being present at the announcement on Lark Street, which along with Mayor Sheehan. These were really needed grants for some of our small businesses in the Center Square area. And it seems like the application has really bridged that fine line between being onerous and making sure that we have sufficient information to evaluate these requests while still making them accessible for small businesses. I know the small businesses downtown and on Lark Street are very, very appreciative of this opportunity. So thank you to Sarah and to Ashley in particular for spearheading this.
Thank you. Sarah?
Great, we can move into compliance update with that. I did want to touch on two, and I know that we've distributed both reports previously around to the board, but as a reminder that we've provided an update from the authority's budget office, their review that they had done earlier in the summer. We were noted, they reviewed the 526 Central Avenue project. Again, as a reminder, that's a mixed use affordable housing project that provides office space as well as health clinic space for disadvantaged populations on Central Avenue. That project was reviewed. They did post a couple of findings. The most interesting one was noting that we did not have our mortgage recording exemptions publicly listed for that project. I will note that the estimated mortgage recording exemptions were listed in multiple areas, more than 10 places on our website. They were not, however, listed in Article 3 of our project agreement, which is what the ABO had looked at for that. So that's something that Joe and I have been in contact about. Hodgson Russ is taking a look at whether or not that needs to be added into that particular place in our project agreement. But please rest assured that estimated mortgage recording exemption was listed multiple places and was also provided to the affected taxing jurisdictions as well. So if you saw that, please note that we're on top of it. We also received the annual Office of the State Comptroller report on industrial development agencies statewide. You've received both that report as well as our annual press release that went along with that. I'm happy to report that on each of the metrics across the board, we are performing either more efficiently or better than our counterparts across the state. We are in the top tier of each of those metrics, and you can see that in the report as well. So thank you for your work consistently as a group. Your guidance has allowed us to maintain efficiency statewide.
I just want to say thank you to you, Sarah, and your entire team. We have much to be proud of, and I think we certainly set an example and set the tone for other IDAs. And I can say for myself as a board member, I can sleep at night knowing that we do everything we can to dot our I's and cross our T's. So thank you very much.
Great. And then I would move to the final item here, which is just a recap of our governance committee that was held immediately prior to this meeting. We did meet to discuss the vacant IDA and CRC board member seat as required by the governance committee charter. The governance committee and actually the full board was in attendance for that meeting, has recommended emphasizing the following priorities for an industrial development agency board member. starting with diversity first and foremost, an economic development experience or understanding, community involvement and understanding, real estate experience, a strong vision for the success of the city of Albany, and a strong foundation fundamentally of ethics and an understanding of conflicts and fiduciary responsibility. So those are the 6 points that were emphasized by the governance committee. We'll be drafting a letter to come from the chair to the Common Council and participate as fully as we can in that selection process. The committee noted that the applicants to that vacant seat have a depth of experience, are extremely diverse and very strong candidates for the position. So we're looking forward eagerly to having our 7th member, back in and in the discussion.
So are we. Thank you. Do you have anything else, Sarah?
That's all I have.
Chair, if I
anyone-
may,
Go ahead, Joe.
and, in the interest of being correct technically, the question, the effective date with respect to the prevailing wage requirement, I indicated was July of 2021. That was in the original budget bill. The budget bill that was actually passed was January 1 of 2022.
Okay,
There'll be no projects next year subject to prevailing wage, but it will be effective January 1, 2022. So I apologize for that.
thank you, Joe. So any applications received after January 1, 2022 are impacted by the prevailing wage law?
The way the statute works is that it's any projects that are closed after that date.
Wow, Joe, something's going on with your mic, Joe.
I think what Joe is saying is that the projects would need to close prior to the end of the year 2021. If a project closes after January 1st, 2022, they would have the prevailing wage provision included if they met the other tests of the project.
Sure, no, worth noting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Susan, second? I can't
Tracy,
see.
quick
so-
question.
Sure.
And Joe, this is a question for you that maybe you can answer next time. Given that the statute's using the closing as the target, could you just give us a sense of what that means for us for a target date on which we should be telling people applications after this date are going to be covered?
Happy to do so. And can people hear me okay?
Yes.
Obviously, the focus of our office over the past 3 months has been the pandemic and the daily, if you will, executive orders being issued out of the governor's office. We have a fair amount of memoranda prepared already on the prevailing wage issue. We can certainly refocus our efforts and our attention to that issue, get some background to you, and then we can start discussing that in terms of a rollout and how we would calculate and determine whether a particular project is subject to the rules, not subject to the rules. At the risk of getting into the weeds, what's also interesting is that next year, at mid-year, there will be the convening of the Public Subsidy Board that is formed under that legislation. And that board is empowered to review all of these requirements, including the qualification requirements. So there may actually be changes on an ongoing basis as they look at what should happen and what should not happen. And we'll be tracking that obviously on your behalf. But we can certainly, again, refocus our attention to that issue and then be in a position to brief the board on a very detailed and accurate level.
Thank you.
And Bob, to answer the question specifically, I think we would be looking at any application that was received after June of next year, may be, potentially in that window, given that we typically have a 3-month review process for straightforward requests. And then it takes some time after that to prepare the legal documents. It takes some time on the applicant side too to get ready for closing with that. And so we're really June and beyond, we'll have that quirk sort of potentially in there.
Yeah, I had a 6-month period in mind too, so that's interesting.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Dominic, because it sounded like, if I heard Joe correctly, it's project, it's not the application date, it's the date that things close, right? So it doesn't, even if the application came in December 31st, and it would still be subject to the January 1st prevailing wage as of now, unless the board changes things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, true. Okay, did I have a second on that motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Thank you, Darius. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.